Welcome to a night of total terror.
In 1968, George Romero brought us Night of the Living Dead. It became the classic horror film of its
We
time.
must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. They are not. They will not respond to such emotion.
Now, George Romero brings us the most intensely shocking motion picture experience for all time.
It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
First came the night, then came the dawn. Now comes the most eagerly awaited day in horror film history.
Welcome back to Thursday of the Dead, episode 237. My name is Jace. The origins of this episode go back about 4 years with my friend Jomo. He was the second guest on my short-lived podcast 4 years ago. And during our discussion, he mentioned that he was developing a book based on fan fiction, which was Days of the Dead, Nevada Necromance. And I was one of the authors, and my friend Russ was one of the authors as well. And so the published authors were going to have tables at Days of the Dead. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened, canceled that show. I was living in Sacramento at the time, and I didn't want to go because I didn't want to be trapped in Las Vegas. The irony, of course, now is I live in Las Vegas. And so this is the first horror convention that I've been to since I've lived here. This was at the Plaza, which is over by Fremont Street, kind of on the other side of town from where I live. It was my first time going into the casino. Casino was okay, not great. I try to avoid crowds, so going to big casinos is questionable for me. But you know what got me here was the cast of Night of the Living Dead. That was really who I wanted to see. Cast of Night of the Living Dead and Greg Nicotero. That was all I was really interested in. But I also want to see what the Day of the Dead show was like. And I can sum it up pretty quickly. It's a great show. I plan on getting a vendor table there next year. You know what it reminded me of was the old Fangoria shows that I used to go to in Los Angeles, Burbank, San Jose. I would go to wherever they were having them. But it had that feel of great dealer room, cool panel. This show, I think the main draws were, there was a Howling reunion. They had the cast and crew of the Howling doing a panel. Night of the Living Dead did a panel on Friday that I missed because I was only there on Saturday. When I walked in, I was impressed, first of all, and I made a beeline to start meeting some of the people I wanted to meet. The first person I ran into was Alan Trotman, the Tar Man from Return of the Living Dead. I got an autograph photo of him, and I mentioned that I had made a painting of him that a friend of mine bought. I didn't think to actually show him a picture of it. You know, it was a very brief interaction. He was very nice. So after that, my next stop was some of the Living Dead people. I went to Kyra Schon next, and I've been a fan of hers for years. I actually did a portrait of her back in high school that was on my grandma's wall until she died. She loved that portrait. After that, I met the legendary Judith O'Dea, who I'd never met before. I'd never met Kyra or the Tar Man or Judith before. Russell Streiner was there. I met him before at a Monsterpalooza, or maybe it was a Fangoria in Burbank. Very nice guy. I have a couple signed photos from him. So I wasn't really needing to meet him again. He's a nice guy. The takeaways that I can tell you about this show is go see these people, especially people from Night of the Living Dead. They're not going to be here much longer. Not to be morbid, but think of that movie's, 55 years old now? 56? So go see them if you have a chance. If you have a chance to go to like Living Dead Weekend, I'm sure there will be some of them there. And I know that they travel around to different shows, so keep an eye out for conventions with any of the original cast of Night of the Living Dead, if you're interested in that. And if you're watching the show, you probably are interested in that. So beyond that, I wandered over and found Ashley Lawrence's table. She was Christy in Hellraiser. I actually met her before years ago and have an autographed photo. My reason for wanting to go see her was because I knew Jomo was her assistant at the table, friend assistant, whatever you want to call it. So I caught up with him briefly, introduced Claire to him, said hi to Christy, and after that, we walked the dealer room. There was a lot of cool stuff, including a super cool coffin-shaped shelf that was painted like Night of the Living Dead with Kyra on it. And so I asked how much it was, kind of dreading, because I'd already spent a lot of money on autographs. And he said $65. And it's like, okay, deal. I bought it. He's like, do you want me to keep it here or do you want to carry it on? It's like, I want to carry it. So Claire and I ended up walking back to our car, put the autographs and the coffin shelf in the car so I didn't have to carry that around. And then after that, I mean, these shows are not really Claire's cup of tea. I appreciate that she wanted to go with me, and especially like the panels. So I told her I wanted to go see Greg Nicotero's panel. And she said, okay, I'll be down at the bar and we'll just reconvene afterwards. And so she was gambling, playing like video poker, said she was talking with the bartender. I walked into the room with the panels, and the Howling panel was still going. I didn't realize it had already started. I would have gone to it had I known. And so when I walked in, I saw Greg Nicotero standing in the back. I just said, hey, how you doing? I don't know him, but, I know who he is. And so we both kind of stood in the back waiting for him to go on. And his presentation was awesome. The main takeaways I got from him is he told a great story about working on an effect on Land of the Dead and how George Romero called cut after this action sequence where this woman was supposed to have a bite taken out of her, and that George was happy with it. And he looked over at Greg, and Greg was slumped over, sad. And George asked him, hey, what's the matter? It's like, oh, her arm blocked the effect. And George's answer is like, that's real life, man. That's, you're going to be flailing for your life. So, of course, you're not going to see it all the time. And George's perspective is there's no such thing as perfection, which I agree with. And so the funny thing is, he told a story later about working for Quentin Tarantino on Inglourious Bastards, about this scene where Brad Pitt is carving a swastika in Christoph Waltz's forehead at the end, and saying how difficult that effect was and how many tests he had to do, and that he had all these ideas, and that Quentin's like, no, I want it right and I want it the hard way. Like, I don't want any shortcuts. He wanted perfection, basically. And it's just funny thinking of like the differences between those two directors, George and Quentin. But after that, I went and met up with Claire downstairs. We came back up. Well, let me see. No, at that point, I think we were done. We ended up going after the show across to Fremont Street, which I live here, but I hadn't been to Fremont Street. So we walked over to Cirque, played some slot machines. Cirque was cool just because they card you at the door, there's security at the door, kind of a riffraff filter. They scan your ID, and so you have to be 21 to get in there, and they're going to keep visibly crazy people out, because there's a lot of visibly crazy people out on Fremont Street. And belligerent people and all that stuff. So my takeaway, though, is Days of the Dead is great. They have upcoming shows in, I think, Chicago and Arizona. And I'll post a link in the comments to their site. So if they're coming anywhere close to you, I recommend to go see them. It's a fun show. Also, before I go, I don't know if a lot of you are aware, but go to dawn45.com and take a look to to see if Dawn of the Dead is playing in a theater anywhere near you. From what I understand, it's coming April. I know that it's playing here in Las Vegas, I think April 12th, for, the Dawn 45th anniversary. They're getting it close to the actual anniversary of when it was released in the US in 1979. And here's your chance to go see it in the theater again for the 45th anniversary. Thanks for watching. See you next week.